Hey everybody, it's Corey's Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Nikon Coolpix AW100. This guy right here. So this camera actually just got announced a little over a month ago. It came out a month ago. Basically it's a point and shoot, and when I saw it come out I wasn't too excited about it because I usually shoot on DSLRs. But the more I started thinking about it, I found that there's certain situations where I can't really take my DSLR because it's just too big, not too convenient. If it's not a serious shoot, there's really no point in bringing it. So I was thinking about getting another point and shoot because I haven't had one in probably about 3 years. And even back then, point and shoots weren't that remarkable. But the more I thought about it, I thought, well, maybe I'll look back into it. And when I started looking through some stats, this one came back up and I said, well, this actually has a lot of cool features. So I thought I'd pick one up and see what it's all about. So it just showed up. And it looks just like this, and we'll get back into that in a second. So it comes in this box, and we'll go ahead and go through what comes in the box. And it's your basic stuff. Comes with your camera, comes with your AVI cable, so you can hook the camera straight up to your TV in case you want to view it at a friend or family house. Show what you already got, you know, review the videos. That can be kind of fun at parties and stuff like that, so that's convenient. Comes with your regular USB cable in case you just want to download straight from the camera to the computer. Makes it a lot easier. It's going to come with your Nikon software. It's basically just a manual on CD, or CD, and then a program so you can do some basic downloading from the camera and get you going. I usually use third-party software, so it'll work with either way. It also comes with your charger and battery, so we'll get back into that when we get into the features, but it actually comes with its own battery. And alright, so let's dive into the camera. It's it right here. So it comes in different colors. I chose to get a black for a couple reasons, basically because I got it from Best Buy and they only had it at black at the time. But I actually kind of like it because it actually has a little bit of texture to it. The other ones don't, but they actually have some pretty cool colors. It comes with an orange, blue, like this black. I think in other markets, not in the US, for some reason it comes in white and camouflage, which looks kind of cool too. So I went with the black, and so far, you know, it's pretty good looking camera as far as cameras go. And all right, so we'll dive into some features so you can see what I'm talking about. So some of the things I like is it goes from ISO 125 all the way to 3200. 3200, from what I've already seen, looks pretty reasonable, I'd say. I mean, if you're in a low light situation where you have to get it, it's going to get the shot for you. It's going to be grainy, but you can probably clean that up later. But it's nice that it's able to go that high in case you're out in a very, you know, low lit situation, or even outside in the dusk. It'll at least get you the shots if you don't want to use, say, your flash. It comes with a 3-inch screen, which is, you know, pretty normal, pretty standard for today's cameras. Unfortunately, it only comes with the 460,000 dot display, which is actually only about 153 pixels. So dots, it doesn't actually mean pixels, by the way, but that is not really exactly the high resolution screen. So that was like a little bit of a pro and a con. It's kind of middle of the road. Nikon makes a lower and a higher, and this was right in the middle. It would have been nice to have the higher in case, you know, you're in, like I was saying, low light situations, or as we'll get to, it's an underwater camera. It would have been nice to have a higher resolution screen for that. But for what it is, it's going to be okay. But just know that, you know, it's middle resolution with that many pixels. So it takes SD cards and actually has an internal memory of 83 megabytes. I don't even know what 83 megabytes is because that's so small, but I guess if you forgot your memory card, it's going to let you get like maybe a handful of those pictures. But just make sure you always have your SD cards because you're not going to be able to save much to that. I'm actually starting to think that maybe if you had to upgrade the firmware on it, maybe it's going to use some of that memory, because 83 megabytes, that's so small in today's terms that it's pretty much useless. But it does have that in there. Just in case you did forget your card, you'll be able to pop off a couple shots, but always try to remember to bring that SD card. And it uses all the current SD cards as far as, you know, the high definition ones and the XD or XC, whatever, for video, which is going to be your higher ones for video. I use SanDisk Extreme cards, the class 10s, just because they're the most rugged, and they're the fastest for shooting video. And this camera is capable of shooting video, so you're going to want to get a high class of SD card. Alright, so it comes with a rechargeable battery. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a pro and a con. It's real nice that it comes with its own battery that's you know, a lithium ion, so it's going to last you quite a long time. Unfortunately, sometimes if you're out on a vacation, you only bring one battery and it goes dead, and say you forgot your charger, well, now you're kind of stuck because you can't put, you know, regular AA batteries in it just to keep you going. It does, however, give you up to 250 shots and about an hour and 35 minutes of video on a full charge. So even if you're on vacation, I mean, for the typical person, that's going to be plenty to get you the entire vacation. But if you think it's not, then just bring the charger with you and you should be good to go. You can always pick up another battery if you think you're going to go over that. But that's actually pretty darn good. So it's nice to see that they put that battery with the camera. It should work out fine. So it shoots HD video all the way up to 1080p. It's the only one that's showing it 1080p versus I, so it's pretty high resolution. Another little cool thing is it lets you shoot in 60, 120, and 140 frames per second. So it actually has, basically that's so you can do like a slow motion feature, or you can actually speed it up. If you're doing some kind of like artsy video project or something like that, that can come in handy. I usually just use it at you know, the standard for showing regular video, and I usually just keep it around like 30 frames per second. Kind of keeps like the fluid motion going, and doesn't eat up as much of your memory, but it actually looks very good. So I'm pretty happy with the video so far. As far as the camera lens, it's a 5x zoom lens. The equivalent on like a 35mm or full frame sensor would be 25mm to 140 millimeters. So that's pretty wide. Actually, 28 is about a normal zoom, you know, like a normal format, to 140, which is, you know, pretty telephoto. I mean, it could be a little bit wider, which would be nice, but that's definitely going to be able to get you most of your shots. Like if you're in a room setting, that's going to be plenty wide enough. And 140, you know, you're going to be able to zoom in. It also has a digital zoom, which takes it a little bit beyond that. It's going to start losing a lot of your resolution if you do that, but in case you have to get it, it's there for you. It goes from f3.9 to 4.8 on a CMOS sensor. CMOS is going to be a little more rugged for this kind of camera. That's probably why they put it in here. It also makes it a lot more fluid for shooting video. So that's probably why the sensor, from what I can tell, it's working pretty good, and I like it a lot. One thing I did notice when comparing it to other cameras is it's got a pretty good dynamic range as far as keeping everything in exposure. If you're going from dark to light, it keeps a good balance in between those two. So it also has a compass and a GPS mapping, which is pretty much unique for this camera. So one nice feature to the GPS is if you're out, say, hiking, which you probably would with a camera like this, it's able to track your progress on the trail you are and kind of give you pretty much, you know, coordinates of where you are. That's a nice feature, because if you want to track, you know, if you want to pack light and just want to take that camera for all your pictures, well, now you have a GPS map to go with it, and you're not having to have two separate devices. So that's a real nice thing. Plus, it'll also tag those GPS coordinates to the pictures you're taking, so when you download them to the computer, you know exactly where you were when you took that picture. Or if you want to go back to, like, say, your favorite hunting, fishing spot or a hiking trail, you'll know how to get there when you're looking at these pictures, because they're going to put those coordinates into it. It also has a compass in it, which is electronic. It works both ways, whether you're taking a picture straight on, or if you're laying the camera flat down like this, like a more traditional compass, which is also a nice little thing, so it can tell you which way you're going. So those two features are pretty much unique on one of these ruggedized cameras, and it's nice to see that they put these in here as an addition to something that just came out. It also has that CMOS sensor, as I was saying. It's going to be a 16 megapixel. Somewhere around, it's going to be more like a 9 true megapixel image sensor, which is plenty. That's more than enough. It's actually so much that you could probably get away with cropping some of your pictures. Not that I recommend it, but you could probably get away with that, and your resolution is still going to be plenty enough to have a nice, crisp image to play with. The processor here is going to be the Xpeed C2. Now, that's not a brand new processor, but it is a processor that they've used in some of their DSLRs. So that'll bring up to one of the best things about this camera that I just love, is how fast this starts up because of that processor, and it's almost instantaneous. So you'll see as I press the button right here, and boom, it's ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and turn it on, take a shot, and then you can see how fast this actually fires up. So you go ahead and turn it on, and boom, it's that fast. That's like around like a second, so that's really quick. And compared to my old point and shoots that I had from many years ago, that's got very frustrating, that's pretty much instantaneous. It's also way faster than pictures, say, taken on, like, say, my iPhone, which I always have with me, but it frustrates me all the time because I can never quite get that shot because it can never fire up quick enough. You'll never have that problem with this because it fires up incredibly fast. But that also brings me to a point where this is kind of my con about this camera. And even though it's very good and I'm liking it so far, it's very basic as far as its adjustability. So with a processor like that, it would have been great to see it shoot in RAW format, but it does not. It only shoots in JPEG. That might have been pushing it for a point and shoot of this size, but it would have been a nice feature, and it does not have that. Also, when you go through the settings, pretty much you can adjust your exposure if you really get into the settings, but going into like your f-stops and your ISO and stuff like that, it's really not really available. So you're kind of stuck in automatic mode as far as this is a pretty automatic camera, and you're at the discretion of its brains over your brains. So that's a pretty big con if you're like a professional shooter. Even though I do shoot professionally, this is still going to work for me because the camera is pretty much making the right decision most of the times. I'm only using this for snapshots and for fun stuff. I would never probably use this for something professionally, but I could probably get away with it if I know how to control it in its environment. But for doing its job, it does it well. And for being a ruggedized camera, and by what I mean by that is it's shockproof, it's waterproof, and it's freeze-proof. And so it's shockproof up to 5 feet. So if you're holding it at like regular chest level and drop it, it's going to be fine. It's waterproof up to 33 feet. I tested it in the bathtub. It works fine. Kind of a cool thing. And it's freeze-proof down to actually using it in up to freezing conditions. So at 32 Fahrenheit, 0 centigrade, it's going to be able to actually use it if you can actually store it at below those temperatures. So those are a couple nice perks. This is I actually picked this up because if I'm doing any kind of like diving or like some stuff in the pool, this is going to make you get some creative shots from under the water, and you don't have to really worry about banging it up because it's more shockproof. And you're going to get shots that normal people aren't going to get with their normal point and shoots or DSLRs because they're stuck at the above angle, and you're actually able to get into the water and take some very creative shots from the other side. So that's another reason I got this camera. So all in all, just feeling it. The perimeter of it, it's all plastic, but it's a really hard carbonate plastic, so it almost feels like metal. The front here is a little bit plasticky, but that's probably due to it can take a drop. I'm sure they've tested this backwards and forwards and making sure that nothing's going to fall off this thing. And when you're playing with it, it really feels nice and tight. I got pretty normal to large size hands, but the buttons aren't too small and you can usually get to them. They actually designed this so for people like doing extreme sports like snowboarding or skiing, they can actually get to the buttons quite easily even with gloves on, and I found that to be true. You can actually custom set it so if you shake it, it'll go to a certain part of the menu so you can get there quick. You can actually customize this button right here for the map so you can do other things. However, when you do have to take the shutter, or take the picture rather, you do need to press the shutter button, and it's not super large, but it's big enough where if you get enough pressure on it, it's going to take the picture. So that's all I got to say for about the specs of it. I'm going to go ahead and switch the video, and I'm going to go ahead and do the video from the camera itself and do a little walk around so you can see what kind of images it puts out and how the microphone works. Alright, so here's video from the device itself. I'm walking around my house, which is during the middle of the day, but it's pretty dark in here, and we'll walk around and watch how the camera is able to adjust for the lighting, and you'll see exactly how much output this is putting. I should note that this camera does not have a mic input, so this is just a mic in front of the camera. It actually has two microphones for stereo effect. But for things that are going to be like far away, it's not going to be the best. You'll just have to make do with what's on the camera itself. But it'll definitely get the job done as far as recording pretty good stereo sound. So here as we're walking around, it's getting pretty bright now as we go outside. And the autofocusing does a pretty good job as far as figuring out what you're trying to look at and keeping it all in focus. So there's some houses over there, and we'll go ahead and zoom in on those guys. And that's zoomed all the way in. There's a little bit of handshake with this, as you can see, because when you're zoomed in that much you're going to see it, but it does have vibration reduction with this lens. So that's zoomed all the way in, even with its digital zoom and optical zoom. But it does a pretty good job of keeping everything steady with that vibration reduction. And should give you some pretty good images. Shooting over this way, we're almost into the sun, and the dynamic range is pretty good in this camera as far as keeping everything a nice balance between light and dark. So that's a great view from my backyard. We'll head back on inside and finish up this review. So before I wrap up this review, I'm sure you're really wondering if this thing is actually waterproof. And in case you're not wanting to do yourself, I'll go ahead and... So that's running under my sink that I put in my bathtub. That actually does work. I'm going to clean off the old lens here so you can see me. But it definitely is a waterproof camera, which is a pretty cool little feature that all point and shoots don't really have unless you get one of the ruggedized series. But it does work, and it works pretty good. And all in all, I'm pretty happy with this camera, even though I just got it. I'm still learning it and getting used to it, but I think it's going to be a good performer. But if you got any questions, go ahead and you can email me at my Gmail account, which is quarterreviews@gmail.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about this camera as best I can. So that's all I have for this review. Go ahead and if you can subscribe to my channel, and I'll be continuing to put these up. Otherwise, look at some of my other reviews for other related camera equipment, and we'll see you.